couple other highlights there is that there's a lot of focus on social equity where licensing is concerned, so that some of the damage can be hopefully, I don't know, blunted, or I don't know what the right term is here, but basically so that we can make sure that people in areas that were disproportionately affected by the war on drugs have the opportunity to get into the cannabis business. And it does a couple.
I got to ask you, was the blunted intentional, or you just have to? I have to ask.
Blunted. You know what? It wasn't intentional. I wish I was that clever. Maybe I should just go ahead and claim it. It's intentional. We'll cut that
out. Yeah, and we got to edit that out. It was like he is so quick with it. Hello. We are your concerned citizens. I should probably take the name now so they can actually read our names instead of us always having to introduce ourselves, but we'll introduce ourselves anyway. We're getting fancy. We have
everybody knows you, BJ.
That's right.
That is not true. I am here to almost host the proceedings, but I am a concerned citizen as well. Once again, we'll go around the horn to introduce ourselves really quickly. We'll start with you down at the bottom, Mr. Brandon.
Yeah, I'm Brandon Russell. Background on me: last year I ran for county commissioner, served for a couple years on the Democratic Central Committee, and a lifelong resident of the county, and follow a lot of what's going on here locally and have some opinions about it.
Some opinions, yes. That is one way to describe it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it is one way to describe it, isn't it? So I'm Chris Hill, and I'm just a concerned citizen. That's all I am. I'm a realtor. My family's both from my mom and dad are both natives to St. Mary's County, so I'm from here, and we're not really from here. Kind of grew up around. I'm an Army brat, and I'm the incoming president for Maryland Association of Realtors for next year, and so this is a chance for me to run my mouth about things and bounce things off of other people with maybe differing opinions. It's kind of cool.
Yes, sir. Definitely appreciate having somebody that's important to the state on board with us.
That's Brandon.
And I am BJ Hall. I am the immediate past president for our local branch of the NAACP, St. Mary's County, the 7025. And I wear a ton of other hats here locally. One I will highlight, shout out to Knowledge Boxing. We're actually they're helping us raise money for a youth and aviation program that we run here. We being Reach Back and Lift One. It's a nonprofit I started with my mom, and you guys are invited. And Chris, I'm going to ask you for some sponsorship money.
Yeah,
help
out
with that Creed 3. and who doesn't want to watch a Rocky movie? Because technically that's what it is. But just in case you haven't watched the first show, we are three of the concerned citizens here in the county, and we have the unfortunate pleasure to enjoy reading bills, listening to hearings, and following up on bills and legislation at the state and county level, and understanding that everybody that doesn't have the same joy but always wants to know the information. We thought it would be good for us to at least highlight some of it, some of the legislation that would be relevant to people here in our area, and make sure that we do our job to keep everyone informed. Hopefully we can present information in a very well-rounded way, because I think that we have a very diverse group of thinkers here. So I think that this will be informative, and we'll give food to people that like They say you'll be able to find all the flavors that you enjoy here.
You know what? Let's just hope we don't need knowledge boxing to work it out.
But if we do, I know a guy.
An opportunity.
All right, so right now we're highlighting things that are happening in our in our session with the General Assembly, and they're putting out a lot of bills, y'all. Putting out a lot of bills.
A lot of them.
In the Senate, they have 1,231 pieces of legislation, with 920 being specific to legislation. And in the House they have 1,542 and 1,247 bills focused on legislation. That is a lot to read.
It's pretty impressive that the Senate is a much smaller body than the House, but they're keeping right up there with the number of bills they got. So those folks are working overtime.
You know, that's a good point. We should put some metrics up. A bill per elected official for each body, so you can see how much work they're actually putting in on the Senate side. We also need to filter out some of the redundant bills that they have in there, because there are a lot of bills that end up being very similar and they kind of get folded into something else.
Yeah.
Well, this year, the biggest thing I think is going to be cannabis. Our good man from Economics Matter, the chair of Economics Matters from Southern Maryland, C.T. Wilson, dropped this bill. Him and the chair from Ways and Means, Vanessa Atterbury, they are the sponsors for this bill. Brandon, can you give us a quick once over for this bill that we have, that we're going to highlight, but we're not going to go into that deeply today?
Right. Yeah, so it's a pretty significant bill. It's 88 pages long, so it's a long read. But essentially what this is doing is it's kind of going through how legalized cannabis is going to be rolled out. So one of the first things it does is it adds the word cannabis onto the Alcohol and Tobacco Commission. So it is going to become the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Cannabis Commission. Couple other highlights there is that there's a lot of focus on social equity where licensing is concerned, so that some of the damage can be hopefully, blunted, or I don't know what the right term is here, but basically so that we can make sure that people in areas that were disproportionately affected by the war on drugs have the opportunity to get into the cannabis business. And it doesn't.
I got to ask you: was the blunted intentional, or you just have to? I have to ask.
Blunted. You know what? It wasn't intentional. I wish I was that clever. Maybe I should just go ahead and claim it. It's intentional. We'll cut that out of the part.
Yeah, and we got to edit that out. It was like he is so quick with it.
Man, I wish it was. Yeah, so it does that. Some of the local focus points are how many licenses are we talking about? So I'll go through that really quickly. Standard licensing, 75 grower licenses, 100 processor, 300 dispensary. Micro licenses are 100 grower, 100 processor, 200 dispensary, 10 licenses for incubator spaces, and 50 licenses for on-site consumption, meaning you can go to the establishment and partake in whatever your pleasure is where cannabis is concerned on site at that establishment.
10, you said 10 for the state?
50.
Oh, 50.
50. So there's 24 jurisdictions in the state, I think. So that's about 2 per jurisdiction. If you watch the commissioner meetings, you may have seen there was some talk about that at the most recent one, I think, or maybe the one before that. And the only kind of local stipulations other than licenses that we can really get into according to this bill so far are that local jurisdictions do have the ability to block on-site consumption licenses in their home county, if they so choose. The only other thing that they can really do is that they can establish zoning requirements for cannabis businesses, but those requirements can't produce an undue hardship on the business. So you can't say like all of these businesses must be in the same spot. You can't do that. And then the other thing locally is that we get whatever our percentage of 1.5% of the sales tax revenue is. So 1.5% of the overall sales tax revenue for the state is directed back to the local county, and we only get 1.5% of what was actually sold here in the county. So let's hope it's a lot, because that means a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
So now, it's like you're asking people to go out and smoke more weed. It's like,
safely, responsibly.
It's like I've never heard anybody say, go out and smoke weed responsibly. It's like,
well, that's
something
because
you
they
got to
haven't
get
seen
used
this
to.
bill yet. They haven't seen these 88 pages of
Yes.
Controversial topic. Which look, I don't even want to get into the. I'll get into it. That's what we got. We don't want to dwell on it too much, but the only thing I've smoked in my life is a turkey. I'm just saying. That's just the way. That's just me. That's who I am, and I look at this thing and I go, I'm like, one of my least favorite things to do is to go somewhere, and I hate to say like Baltimore or DC, and just be hit in the face with that smell that makes me nauseous, right? And that's the only, I'm being selfish. That's the one thing I don't want to deal with that, right? I don't want to deal with that. The revenue would be nice. I mean, I don't know where the revenue goes from the state level. Is it supposed to go to education? Is that what's going to help pay for the Kerwin Commission stuff?
They wish.
Right. No, that's the gambling money.
Yeah, it's supposed to go to what they're calling the Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund.
Oh, okay.
That's going to fund community-based initiatives that are intended to benefit low-income communities. And there is a special call out there that says that money from this fund cannot be used for law enforcement funding purposes.
Wow.
It's kind of detailed in that way.
I mean, if you're trying to develop a law that's supposed to reduce some of the friction around the war on drugs, it would be a little hypocritical to send money to law enforcement. So it's like, all right, we're gonna use the revenue to help fund busting people that are selling other drugs or who have too much of this drug on them. So, yeah.
Well,
I understand that.
I just think there's going to be enforcement issues. How you're going to have. Let's just be real. You're going to have way more. So honestly, maybe some of the money does need to go to policing it, because you're going to have way more traffic violations. It's going to happen.
Why?
Because it's going to happen. I mean, I'm sure we could look up other areas that have had the same situation, and the amount of traffic violations involving marijuana use have gone up sixfold, if I know my numbers right, something like that. But
it sounds like you've done some research on this.
No, I haven't. Honestly, I'll be honest with you, I haven't read the bill at all. So it's like 88 pages. And I looked at it. I just while I was working here, I saved it so I can listen to it tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, have it read back to me, because
All right. So what we can do is, because when you started talking about that type of thing, I'm like, all right, it's not going to really make more addicts, but
right. No, I get it.
But no, I definitely would like for us to have an opportunity to thoroughly go through the bill so we can talk about it
what's the schedule
in a very educated way.
What's the schedule for it? I mean, like, it's
Friday's the hearing.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm sure that's going to be a full hearing room plus 100,000 people online sitting there trying to. What's the limit, Brandon? What's the limit of people that can actually testify virtually?
I don't know, but there's got to be one.
They had a limit last Well, when we started the virtual testimony in 2020, so I'm assuming 2021. So okay, excuse me.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. No matter how you look at it, it's going to be interesting. So yeah, I see it here. It's the 17th at 1:00.
Roger that.
So tune in if you can.
Yeah, so we could take a look at it and then try to see if we can get a better understanding, because I know they'll probably have a lot of subject matter experts jumping on there, and we can get an understanding of both sides of the argument. So and then some of the amendments that'll probably be introduced as people testify on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, this bill is 88 pages now, but it's in its infancy. It's going to grow. It's going to be amended. I mean, this is a huge deal, and they got to get it right because it starts on July 1. So
yeah,
they got to do it this session.
You know what's interesting is as I was scanning through it, I actually thought to myself, I'm like, how hard is it? I mean, think about it. If you're putting together this bill, right, seriously, from beginning, and just you're throwing your ideas onto a piece of paper is all you're doing. It's like you're really seeing what sticks, to be honest.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous way to legislate. Just saying, you gotta, you're better off starting with baby steps and then working, in my opinion, baby steps and working the bill up to what you really, really want it to be. Because all these bills are going to change. Even no matter what happens with this bill, no matter what happens, next year there'll be revisions to it.
Yep.
No matter what, it's not going to be perfect.
Guess and test.
That's the problem.
And they're heaping a lot of pressure on themselves. I mean, I think who was it? Was it Ferguson in the Senate? Somebody said this is going to be the model for other states.
Yeah.
And that's a high mark to live up to. So they better get it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I think we do need to highlight is this is just really looking at the I guess it would be the economic side of it, not the criminal component to it. So there are a lot of other bills that we probably need to make sure that we highlight when we have our more thorough discussion that are addressing how the decriminalization, how do you decriminalizing how that process how this will be decriminalized over the next year, and how people can get some of their charges or convictions expunged off of their records. So that's something that we definitely need to make sure that we highlight, because if people are not aware of what can come off of their records, people won't apply for it. So
yeah, and I know the Attorney General has stated clearly that he intends to do that moving forward quickly. So
yes, sir.
He said it at his swearing in. So
I'm sure it won't be automatic, but so it's going to take some action on the person that has the conviction, and they need to make sure that they understand the limitation.
Maybe they can use some of the money for his department, since he says he's going to double all of his staff to go after these things. So.
Well, I mean, they're gonna have some free time, since they're not gonna be convicting people on weed charges.
They can focus on other stuff.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right? Maybe they don't cut their staff in half.
Get some temp
Are
workers.
you saying that their staff is going to be blunted?
That sounds like a smoke screen. That was really bad. Sorry. I apologize for anybody listening.
Oh man. All right. So we'll get back to the cannabis discussion when we have more information, especially after the hearing is held on Friday. So maybe that's something that we'll push off until next week.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go into your wheelhouse, Chris. HB 0830.
0830. This is the residential construction or significant renovation electric vehicle charging bill. So basically, this bill is requiring, let me get the wording right, because I'm looking at the bill right now, requiring, for the purpose of establishing and altering certain requirements related to the installation of equipment of charging stations for electric vehicles during the construction or significant renovation of certain housing units, clarifying that a county or municipal corporation may require a greater number than this, but no less than what they're requiring. Basically, nuts and bolts of this is you're required to install a charging station. Now, the way the bill reads is housing units include single-family detached houses, as well as townhomes and multifamily residential buildings. So this
is there a count for that?
What's that?
Is there a count for how many charging stations
Level 2 charging means any renovation to a housing unit that include electrical panel. By the way, also renovations. If you do major renovations to include a garage or a carport or anything like that.
So it's in each unit? For each unit?
That's the way I'm reading it right now.
Probably
multi units requires a certain number for each. Here it is. The construction or significant renovation shall include at least one communal parking space for each 25 residential units featured in a parking space provided at level 2 charging. Mm-hmm. And that's it. This bill contradicts the 88-page cannabis bill in only 4 pages. So I'm sure the author of the bill got all of it right in those 4 pages. And but I have a hard time with this because I told BJ my recommended amendment was that I would support this bill if the same number of gas fueling pumps was installed in the subdivision as electric ones. But I'm not, here's my big picture on this. There's 2. One is we're 120,000 units short in the state of Maryland for residential real estate. Okay, 120,000 units. This is going to do what everything we're fighting against is, and that's going to raise prices of housing. I don't care if it's it costs like $5,000 to put one of these things, at $3,000 to $5,000, whatever it is. It's passed on to the consumer. I don't care who you are, right? It's going to trickle down. Yeah. And the other part of this is I would drive an electrical vehicle. I like my hybrid. You know what I mean? But the problem is that I think the technology isn't there yet. We haven't caught up. It's evolving, right? It's still evolving, and I think we're going to put these things in, and they're going to be, eyesores in 3 to 5 years. Who knows?
Well, so it's going to be like the charges. They need to be like the charger stations that are at the grocery store.
Yeah, like those.
But is it for every 25 units? Even with the detached units, or is that
I think it includes single family housing developments here. If the construction of townhomes and let me read, will not include at least one garage, carport, or driveway. Okay, so if they have a garage, I think they wanted more of them. Let's see here.
It's one in each house.
That's what it sounded like.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's what it looks like too. And I'm all for green energy. I mean, let's do it. But this is really, I feel like it's an overstep for sure. I mean, here's a good example, right? Okay, so last year, my house is 23 years old. So I'm right in that sweet spot of stuff starting to break.
Right.
And need to be replaced. Lucky me. So last year I had to replace the hot water heater, and I looked at maybe doing a tankless. And if I decided to go that route, I would have needed to upgrade my electrical panel to do that. So then now you're telling me that I also need to install a charging station for a car that I put gas in. I mean, it'd be one thing. Hey, if the government wants to give me $5,000 to do it, okay, I'll take it. But that's not what we're talking about here. So, I kind of am with Chris on this. When we get to the point where, or if we get to the point where, electric vehicles are, 50% or 51% of the market, and they're really taking over. Okay, yeah, let's start requiring some of this stuff. But I mean, for God's sake, we don't even require broadband in some communities. And we're talking about charging stations.
You can't update your car.
Right. Let's refocus here and start where we need to really start.
I mean, we're dealing with six. I just looked it up. Of course, I'm not that bright, but there was 66% of car sales are electric vehicles right now, right? And I know they're trying to grow that significantly. I get it, but I also, look, I got a mental block on electric vehicles. I'm sure some people are going to hate me for saying this stuff, but okay, it is what it is. But I have a mental block. I think of the hurricanes in Florida, right? And your power's out for sometimes a significant amount of time, right? And occasionally roads are a little flooded and you have to go through them. I haven't got there yet with electric vehicles. Now, when they get that solar paint on the car, I'm in, right? when the sun absorbs and it powers my car, I'm good. And we don't need electric charging stations anymore.
Right.
And now you're going to be mad because you had to do that upgrade 10 years ago.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly right.
Roger that. No, I agree with you both. Just because of the rising cost of housing at this point. I was like, this, even if it's something that needs to happen, I don't think it's something that needs to happen now. And if it does, there needs to be some incentive on the other side that kind of helps. Because I mean, like you said, because I mean that doesn't make sense for the cost to even. It needs to be some incentive that covers it, so it's not passed on to the citizens that are making the purchases, because that's all that's going to happen.
Yep.
What's funny is we Maryland Realtors has a bill this year, which I'll get you the number next time. I don't know it off the top of my head right now. One of the bills is requiring a fiscal note for housing on each bill, like how it affects.
Oh, I've seen that.
Yeah, and it's a brilliant bill. It makes sense. It's probably not going to go anywhere, but it's one of those things that I'm like, we need to realize that all of these things that we're talking about do affect housing, right? Like in some way, pretty much they affect us. So we need to be smart about that. Your taxes go up, you're going to be paying more, and it's going to be more property taxes, more transfer taxes, more recordation taxes, more tax. And so I don't know. I'm definitely against that bill. I don't like it at all.
We don't think that you're against it just because you're biased, because you're the housing guy. But I definitely understand where you're coming from on this.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So this week was full of a lot of committee hearings, like most weeks are. And we actually had our superstar Brandon testify on one of those. He testified on one of those bills. And one that we actually talked about last week. So can you tell us a little bit about the hearing, your testimony and what you heard while you were testifying?
Yeah, so the bill we're talking about is area code 447 in district voting, in other words. And so, I got to say, the hearing was yesterday on Valentine's Day, and man, they put that bill second to last. So they made us wait for it. And I mean, everybody's bill is just as important as the next one, but when it's the one you're waiting for, it's tough. So it was heard in the Ways and Means Committee. Took like 4 hours to get to it. I think it was a long time. There was some people that testified for and against in person. A couple notables were Julie Randall, chair of the Democratic Central Committee, testified in favor. John Hauser, who is the county attorney, testified against it on behalf of the commissioners. They had, I think, the commissioner president from Queen Anne's County testify in person against it. And then we had
Flowers.
What's that?
Willie Flowers.
Willie Flowers from NAACP, who was, that actually was my favorite part of it, was listening to him. And I think it was Delegate Buckle, go back and forth. Yeah, that was a really, really good debate. So I enjoyed that. It was, good to watch and listen to that. Two opposing points of view, very respectfully done, I think. And so anyway,
buckle up.
Yeah, buckle up. That's right. So then there's quite a few of us virtually testifying. I would say it was maybe half and half, for and half against. So my testimony, I testified in favor of the bill. It's no secret that I support the idea. I think that it empowers voters, makes your vote more powerful because you get to vote directly for who's representing you. We all have our opinions on that. Clearly, folks who testified against it yesterday do not think it would be good for the county. I'll let them have that argument. They can go to bed with that at night. I feel totally the opposite. And I look forward to watching this play out, because I know last time when it was 655 a couple years ago, when it got to the House floor debate, it was another interesting debate back and forth.
I didn't like that either. I didn't like that at all. That was too much.
It was a lot. It went into a lot of different places. And it got kind of testy. And, I think BJ, you said this last time, this is not something we need to necessarily get testy about. This is, you're either for it or against it. You feel how you feel. And that's just what it is at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I did appreciate the back and forth there, and they were able to laugh about it.
Yeah.
I'm had to get on Willie for not knowing the minority leader's name, but I was like, but I think that this one is going to go a little differently. I hope it is, and it was good to hear both sides of the argument. That's what I kind of enjoyed listening to, hearing people come out and passionately take both sides. One thing that I did appreciate Buckle bringing out was like you kind of have an opportunity to write counties out of the bill where this wouldn't necessarily have the same impact that it would in St. Mary's County. And Brian took a hard stance on it, saying this needs to happen for everyone, and I hear where he's coming from. But I guess this is politics at some point, we need to kind of look for a path to victory. If that's what you want to happen, is like, all right, we can take a principled stance on it, or we can look at ways to try to go for that incremental change like Chris was talking about. So we may need to consider trying to figure out which counties are just adamantly opposed to it, and which ones can be written out because it wouldn't necessarily have the same impact.
Yeah.
A couple of other bills, just listening, because it was so far down the list, we had an opportunity to hear a few other bills that talked about some of the reform that was happening around elections. Mainly, one of the ones that stuck out to me was tied to the mail-in vote. So they talked about when it's adjusting when they can start to count, how the update would occur, and information that would be available. And I believe there was an audit. There was a system, or somebody that testified against it actually mentioned a lack of the use of the word audit. So there was not a good audit system for signatures for mail-in ballots. So
there's none at all, is there?
No.
None at all. There's nothing.
No.
Yeah.
So basically, I guess if you were to, I'm like brass tacks guy, right? Ultimately, anybody could sign anything they wanted, really. I guess, and never. I think it's Atlanta that has a pretty strict signature process. I think is one of the other areas. Like in Georgia, I think maybe it's the whole state of Georgia has it. I don't know.
I'm assuming that it would be the whole state of Georgia.
Yeah,
because I'm sure that wouldn't pass Atlanta in Atlanta, but it would be.
Yeah, good point.
It would definitely pass in Georgia.
And, it's interesting. Like I am a firm believer in voter integrity, right? Like that's I can never get to I can never completely get away from completely understand why people are adamantly opposed to voter ID laws, right? Because to me, I feel like that's a basic thing, right? Like it's not that hard. You show your ID, and I mean, and you vote, right? Like, I mean, it just seems like that would solve so many problems.
So some of it has to do with some people that don't have IDs and
How many
and
people don't
not
have
having.
IDs?
Man,
Do you know anybody?
I've heard of people. Yes.
I
Well,
know.
actually, let me not say I've heard of people. I know people that don't have IDs.
But and then the question, they're probably not voting anyway.
Well, maybe.
maybe
No, but
on the cannabis bill.
but the thing about it is, it shouldn't be something that restricts you. So like if you having issues getting an identification, it shouldn't be a limitation on actually.
I got a solution. You know what? I come to the table with solutions.
You'll pay for anybody who needs one?
Nope. You're able on election day. You can get your ID right before you walk in the door. Put a table out there, and
that doesn't.
And DMV can sign you a license, and we can print it out because it takes 4 minutes.
But getting a license can be complicated for some people. So
yeah, because then what you're talking about, what do you require to prove you are who you say you are to get that ID?
True story.
Yeah, some sort of address. You need. I just had mine. My driver's license done last year, and you need to have 3 pieces of mail, I think is what it was, that showed your name on the mailing address. And if you're homeless, then you can get an ID anywhere. You can definitely walk down. You actually need I believe you need an ID to get some of the programs that homeless people get. So you need to have some sort of ID anyway. So whether I just am a firm believer. I think that would eliminate so much. And I can't imagine. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, maybe. Look, that's why we're talking like this. Maybe I'll learn something.
I'm with you, and it's funny because I always see. I grew up in Alabama, and it's one of those things where, as a black man in Alabama, they tell you don't ever walk out of your house without ID because you can always get picked up because you always fit a description. And so it's like, hey, you always carry an ID. So I was like, I don't understand this not having an ID situation, but I understand that there are limitations to getting one for some people. So I just don't think that should be something that limits your ability to place a vote. And so maybe we should worry about the barriers to getting proper government IDs.
No, I agree with you. You know what? That's what I'm saying. Let's lighten the rules on getting government IDs. You know what? We just said, and let's make it a federal issue, right? Let's put it that way. Let's put it in the federal government's hands for a second. You just did a census and counted everybody in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So how'd you count them if they don't have IDs? You don't know who they are. You might have counted them 6 times too. Who knows?
Now we got way more than 113,000 people in this county. And so if we want to talk about counting more than count people more than once, let me tell you where it didn't happen.
No. I'm not implying that. I'm just saying that, it's just. I'm really not implying it. But
no. I'm just sensitive.
No, I'm
sensitive. I'm sensitive about census-related topics, especially since my man Hauser threw out some interesting numbers when he was talking about the black vote in District 4, and I'm like, yeah, but it needs to be the minority number, because if you look at the minority number, it's like 45. But whatever, let's include the rest of them. But that's like, don't let me take the conversation back.
I just think we gotta straighten that out quickly. Like I think that's a huge problem, and all these little Band-Aid bills, right, are just not going to solve it. But at the end of the day, let's get everybody an ID then.
Right.
Let's get everybody in the country an ID. Issue an ID at birth. I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, let's start figuring it out.
Picture may change.
Right. We've got to figure it out.
If we got IDs and made that a requirement, then we would find another reason to say, oh, well, people are making fake IDs out there in Lexington Park. And so it's like, it's one of them things. It's like it would always be something. So
in the back of the weed shop.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would come up. And there is actually a bill, I think it's 926, that has to do with voter ID law, currently going through the House. So we'll see what happens with that. I don't think past ones have been very successful, so I don't imagine this one would be either.
They got a hearing on March 7th on that, but.
And the original bill we were talking about for canvassing of mail-in ballots, that's Bill 535, right?
535. Yeah.
And that, I think, is actually supposed to be fixing what former Governor Hogan did, which is make it so that the local boards of election can't count mail-in ballots until after the primary election day or general election day, and it causes a delay in the results. So it does a little bit more than just that. And I do have questions around, some of the means by which they say you can submit a signature. I think could be very questionable, but I think it kind of goes back to, how do you create a system that is easily accessible to various different people from various means and backgrounds in order to get that signature submitted, in lieu of actually physically going to the elections office in person. Right. So interesting bill to watch as it moves through, for sure.
Yeah. I think kind of like the other bill it's not gonna, the bill 830. I think that this one will definitely have a lot of amendments if it actually moves forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting to me because this is, I believe, I don't understand how, when I was younger, election day, everybody voted and they were counted, and we knew at night, that night, you knew who won or lost. It's not like we got that many more people in the United States since our population has actually decreased since I was a kid. I scared everybody off is what happened.
Yeah.
And I just think that what changed? What made it change so dramatically? It's not more people. Maybe more votes. I mean, you got more votes, but I just don't understand how we could do it with no problem back in the 80s and 90s, even. Besides the hanging Chad.
Process.
I just don't understand why we can't count them. I don't get it. And we just need to do it. We need to figure. And we got technology on our side now. Shouldn't it be easier?
You'd think.
I agree. See, but I'm anti turning it all over to the robots. It was like we're giving enough to the machines. And it was like I've seen Terminator 2.
I'm with you.
All right, gentlemen. Any parting shots? I was like, I know we wanted to get to a couple of other bills, but at this point, unless we want to be on here for about an hour.
We've had too much fun.
Yeah, we overstayed our welcome. No, I think it's good. It's good stuff, and we should have some more exciting bills coming up too. I mean, there's a lot more challenges, and we'll get into the cannabis bill in more detail too. And
what's more exciting than weed? Okay. Well, once again, thank y'all for joining. And whoever's watching, please tell your friends about it. And if you see this and you have a bill that you want to have a discussion about, or want us to do a little more research on, please let us know. We definitely like to know what's concerning some of the citizens of our area. So just let us know, and we'll try to take a look at some of those bills as well.
And not talk for an hour.
I can't lie to you. It's inching that way, even in day 2.
I know, and we haven't even hit our stride yet, and I don't know, they're coming.
Once we get to know each other and get the groove, oh man, it's gonna be an hour and a half.
You're scaring everybody off. I just see them tuning out now. They're already tuning out.
I have to make a rule: only bills that are 4 pages or less.
Yeah, I love it.
All right, y'all. Y'all have a good night.
You too.
You too.